Sasha's expected turn to the light happened in this episode, with her deciding to stay in Wartwood even though it is not particularly safe for her there, and banding together with the citizens of Wartwood to fight against Andreas's invasion plans. It's not the easiest thing to do, it's not the most politically expedient, but Sasha believes it is the right thing to do. It's what Anne would want her to do. And she feels shame for how Anne views her so negatively, views her as a cruel backstabber. Sasha wants to be good. She wants people to look upon her as a good person, and she wants to be deserving of being seen that way. This is quite an effective episode. Sasha is swimming in existential malaise. Her resentment and self-loathing are demonstrated with raw honesty. She's looking for a purpose, and she finds that purpose in helping the citizens of Wartwood. But before that, a brief bit about the other episode of this week, Hop Till You Drop, which was fine. It was a perfectly adequate episode of Amphibia. If you place it along with a lot of the other low-stakes, low-key episodes that we got in Season 1 and early Season 2, it would probably rank in the upper half of them. But I will say that after all the narrative possibilities unleashed by True Colors, after we get so much of Marcy's anguish, her yearning to make a great life for herself and her friends in Amphibia, after we get so much of Sasha's pain and frustration with trying to help her friends, trying to be a good, caring person, making their lives better, and then seeing all that fall apart, and seeing her friends detest her. And after seeing the citizens of Wartwood and the Toads both on the wrong side of this newt invasion, your expectations are raised to such a degree that an episode like this can't help but feel like a little bit of a disappointment. Amphibia is in an odd position right now as a show, wherein the characters who get the most screen time are Anne and the Planters, and indeed they got almost all of the screen time in Season 1 and in Season 2A, but Season 2B demonstrated that Sasha and Marcy, in particular, have so much struggle and grief and yearning in their hearts that Anne and the plant... Sorry if I seem a little hoarse, I can't talk today and I'm not in the best position. I hope the audio for this comes out alright. But as I was saying, Anne and the Planters, in comparison to the haunting stories of Sasha and Marcy, can't help but seem a little underwhelming in contrast. Now, this episode does serve a function. If Matt Brawley was sitting here beside me, he would say that this episode is meant to demonstrate how much Anne has grown since coming into Wartwood in Season 1. The Planters had to take care of her back then, and now she is the one who has to step into the more mature adult role and take care of them. She's stuck in between these two worlds, and she would have previously withdrawn from such responsibility, but now she's facing it. And that's true, but that doesn't make this episode necessarily any more interesting. It's quite simple. She wants to force the Planters to adapt to the rules of her world. They kind of fail, and she feels bad at the end for pushing them so hard, so fast. It's not a bad episode, but it's also not one that I'll remember in a couple weeks. It's not one that really evokes any strong feelings in me whatsoever. I want more time with Sasha, I want more time with Marcy, I want more time with even Andreas and his Bugmaster. I even want more time with the citizens of Wartwood that we spent so much time getting to know in Seasons 1 and 2. They mean a lot more to the average viewer than would a random human character that we have not met before this point. And I will say that I'm kind of afraid a lot of these lighter episodes are going to dilute the power of Season 2. There's nothing wrong with a few more upbeat episodes every now and then, but this show has always had a problem with giving the most dramatic and interesting plot lines the space they need to really breathe and develop. I love Turning Point, and I'll talk a little more about that later in this video, but I'm afraid we're not going to get a lot more episodes like Turning Point that focus not just on Sasha, but on the people of Amphibia. These amphibian characters are not quite as interesting as Sasha and Marcy, but they are people we've gotten to know, and it feels kind of strange being isolated from those characters. I mean, looking ahead at the episodes in the future of the show, it's possible that we will not be back in Amphibia in the same way that we were in Amphibia and Turning Point until November the 13th. Meanwhile, there are 2 entire episodes that have Sprig's name in the title, and will ostensibly be focused on Sprig. Now, I have nothing against Sprig, he's a perfectly fine character, but one does kind of get the sense that the show has misplaced its narrative priorities. After all the devastation and haunting beauty of the end of Season 2 leading up to True Colors, it seems like a definite step backward to go back to these more disconnected, episodic storylines that we saw a lot of in Seasons 1 and 2. But back to Sasha. What motivates her? This is a question we must ask of any character. What propels her? What does she want? For Anne and Marcy, it's more clear what they want. Anne, in Seasons 1 and 2, just wanted to go home. Now that she is home, her goals have changed, and of course she's wanting to save Marcy, but she has mostly achieved her grand objective, which was to get back to her parents. Marcy was the complete opposite. She wanted to stay in Amphibia. She finally had people who supported her there. She finally had a life where she could put her intellect and her passion and her dedication for making her life and the lives of everyone around her better to actual use. She could be more than just the nerd who gets good grades. Sasha does not really align herself with either of these perspectives. She does want to go home, kind of, but that's only because she wants to help her friends. She believes going home is what Anne and Marcy want, so she wants that for them. But once Sasha escapes her prison, she doesn't really have any desire to go home. And we see how her desires can change when she decides to support the Toads. She wants to support them for the same reason that she supported Anne and Marcy. They're people she cares about that she believes need her help. But what does she want? She says that she doesn't know what she wants in True Colors, and it is true that she does not have a grand, concrete objective, but as opposed to what she wants for herself, what she wants other people to think of her, how she wants to be able to think of herself, I think that's pretty clear, once you stop to think about it for a bit. She wants to be thought of as a hero. She wants to be thought of as a guardian, a knight, a kind and moral and generous person who makes the lives around her better. Which is, of course, unfortunate because so often she's stumbled into doing the exact opposite, and she's trying to repair the bond she's broken. She's trying to make good on her desires to actually improve the lives of those around her instead of just doing what she wrongly believes will help improve the lives of those around her. Sasha is relentlessly self-critical in a way that you don't see of Anne or Marcy. Sasha is so committed to this idea of being the helpful friend, the friend who's there for those she cares about, that when that's taken away from her, when she can no longer be certain that she is a good and moral person, she kind of loses all motivation, as we saw back in Reunion when she was willing to die. She becomes bitter and withdrawn, and angry at herself first and foremost, even if she's not entirely aware of this. When she returns to Anne's house in Amphibia, she can't even walk in the front door because she's so consumed by guilt at first, and she spends the entire night sleeping in the barn with Bessie and Michelangelo. That's how self-conscious she is. What devastates her the most is when she reads Anne's diary and realizes that Anne was sincere in trying to give her a second chance in Battle of the Bands. Now, from my perspective, I think Anne, once she decides to give Sasha another chance, could have at least shown Sasha a little more generosity and not tried to view everything Sasha did in the worst possible light. Again, Anne does not necessarily need to give Sasha another chance, but based on their friendship, and based on how Anne apparently really does seem to care a lot about Sasha, I don't think it's a bad idea to give her another chance, and to actually give her that chance instead of just taking everything she does as a slight. And this eventually blows up in Anne's face when she becomes so angry with Sasha, reasonably angry perhaps, but she allows that rage to consume her to such an extent that Andreas is able to win in true colors because Anne gives him the box against Sasha's pleas. But Sasha's not thinking of any of this. What she's thinking of is that she was supposed to be a good friend to Anne. She was supposed to be the one Anne could confide in and trust, and Anne doesn't view her like that anymore, even though Anne showed the willingness to do so. And this, number one, makes Sasha feel very despondent and very self-critical, but on the other hand, it really lights a fire in Sasha to be someone that Anne can trust, that Anne is willing to respect. And there's this really nice reversal of the end of discussion glare, when we see Sasha be determined to do what's right for the townspeople. Not just because it is abstractly right, but because it's what Anne would want, because it's what Anne would think is right, and she wants Anne to think of her in a positive light. Not in a false or phony way, but to actually see her as a person worthy of respect. Now, the episode is not perfect, and I'm not sure I completely buy the townspeople being so willing to trust Sasha, considering how skeptical they were of Marcy. But it's a solid and poignant episode. And though I really hope this is not all the Sasha we get in Season 3A, if this is the last Sasha episode we get for a while, it's about all you could expect from such an episode. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching Amphibia. It's a great show. Anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. Will be coming soon. Promise you that. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.